Have you ever wondered to yourself why, when we live in an era of knowledge, that seemingly people, older people, that possess this knowledge don't share it. They don't share it in the way that used to be the case. And so we're individually managing our own little microcosms without really blending what historically probably has always been the case, our given knowledge, right, with each other. Now you think to yourself for a moment, why do I go to school? Why? Oh, my mom told me. For sure, but that's not the answer. The reason you go to school, in theory, is to gain some knowledge, and then if you're fortunate enough to go to university. Now, I know many of us now think this is a birthright. I'm going to university. Beautiful me. But it need not necessarily be the case as the costs rise. And I read in the United States, for instance, Canada, less and less people want to go to university, for instance. So let's say you're fortunate, though. You go to university, get a job. Eventually you meet a girl or a boy. It's romance, marriage, children, etc. But along this way, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm, of course, focused on me, my little family unit. I'm going to make my family unit successful, rich, whatever it is. But we're missing the point, aren't we? Because that's not our goal as human beings. It's to share this knowledge that I gain over time with humanity. The internet is rife with information. I can go to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is. The information is there, right? But somehow a machine telling me something and a wise, wizened old man or woman telling me something, that has a difference, right? It has a difference. It really does. So when you think about knowledge, the real knowledge can only be imparted by another loving, hopefully loving human being. This could be your parents, could be a mentor. Gosh, it could even be a good friend if you're fortunate to meet a wise friend along the way. So let's step back for a bit and see where we've come from. You know, we've done a really good job as human beings. Many people don't believe this, but life today is probably the best it's ever been. And even though the internet and the CBC and all the rest of them are telling you that war is at your doorstep, this is not true. Actually, war, that accursed phenomenon, is actually declining worldwide as a percentile basis of time in human beings. It's actually going down. And so we're actually living better lives, but we are becoming sadder. More and more people are materially successful, but sad in their heart. So what was the promise of this development? Well, originally in the West, at least, we had revolution. The American Revolution, followed by the French Revolution, and this really established a pattern. You know, and Europe didn't maybe have revolutions till 1848, but yes, there was an attempted revolution there at least. In 1848, my great-grandfather was freed from being a serf, freed. So he was a slave, effectively a slave, and he was freed. So you don't have to be pink, orange, blue, black to be a slave. Slavery is a curse for all generations and all races. So we got this political emancipation, and then we were given financial emancipation, the Industrial Revolution, middle of the 18th century, at the same time as some of these revolutions, but really got going at the beginning of the 19th century, didn't it? Really took off. And so our cities are getting cleaned up a little bit, but finally things are still a bit of a mess, and we have writers like Charles Dickens in the middle of the 19th century who started to write about the horrible plight of the poor, and this galvanized people to begin to change the cities. The Great Stink, as it's called in London, was fixed in the mid-1850s. Brand new sewage system put in. So things are really going along, aren't they? But then Nietzsche comes along and he says, God is dead. Now, to be fair, we also have transcendentalism at the same time with Emerson. Ralph Waldo Emerson is also espousing a form of a new connection with God, as was Spinoza several centuries before him, right? But it seems somehow that the Industrial Revolutions really seem to stimulate this idea that we could go godless, like I could go naked almost, in a sense. And even though it doesn't quite feel right, away we went. And then the West stumbled into these two horrible wars. First World War, 1914 to 1918, and then we had the Spanish flu, killed another 50 or 100 million people, catastrophe. 20 years of peace, sort of peace, and then another war, even more cataclysmic, maybe 100 million dead, right? So many people, I watched a Holocaust survivor the other day. The interviewer asked him, do you believe in God? He said, no, God would never do this. But unfortunately, that's a misunderstanding of the role of God in a sense. Regardless, we now come to our age, right? The internet, so-called internet age, which begins just about the time that Generation Z is born, right around 2000 roughly, right? It really takes off, turns on. Everybody gets a phone, everybody's connected, right? So in all of this, there's a total lack of the knowledge of spirituality. 3 questions. Why am I here? What's my mission? What happens when I leave here? And the human mind doesn't respond well to nothing, right? Because it's probably not true, for starters. And secondly, it produces kind of a nausea, if I can put it this way, in human beings, in all of us. So this knowledge that we've been aspiring to share with each other seems to have been stifled somewhat by this idea that there is no God, no universe, no Gaia. There's all of these concepts are pointless. The new atheists are espousing effectively there's nothing at all. There's just me, little me, big me, whichever me you want. And I'm expunged, I die, bad luck. That's it. Now think to yourself, how do you respond to efforts all of your life and that's it? Not well, most people, right? Most people want something more in their mind. So my thoughts, to end this, my thoughts are, if we want real knowledge, we're going to have to start to talk to one another in a real sense. We're not to talk to the old people. Old people aren't boring, right? Some are, for sure. I know a lot of, I've met at least a lot of very boring old people. But the ones that are alive, that don't quit, keep working, whatever that means, right? Keep striving, keep hoping, keep loving, whatever, have a lot to say, right? So knowledge can be gotten from those individuals and it can make all of our lives a lot better. So you take care, and you know what they say, critical thinking is everything, especially if we're going to gain some knowledge in this world, and critical thinking is great, truly great. You take care. God bless. Bye-bye.